because he's rehabbing his ACL, and I can't let him run too much. But I think that's a riot. Yeah, shook Henry.
Yeah, well, maybe hurry, because it's 7:28. Good to see you. Good to see you. More than normal, but you know. Um, Ready, Eddie? Okay. I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Riverwoods. Please stand with me to say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mayor Ford.
Present.
Trustee Clayton.
Here.
Trustee Dickin.
Here.
Trustee Eastman. Absent. Trustee Hollander.
Here.
Trustee Jamerson.
Here.
And Trustee Smith.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, the trustee Eastman's on his way in. He can answer when he gets here. First order of business is the approval of minutes for the Board of Trustees meeting for May 21, 2024. Do I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion regarding the minutes of the May 21 meeting? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, minutes are passed. The next item of business is the executive session minutes from May 7th, 2024. If there have been no comments passed along to our clerk, and we cannot take comments in open session about those, seeing none, may I have a motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Trustee Eastman, right under the wire. Thank you. Next order of business is the Finance Director's report. I'd like to start with the approval of bills. May I have a motion for the approval of bills, please?
So moved. Second.
Are there any questions or comments? Any issues? Okay, seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton.
Aye.
Trustee Dickin.
Aye.
Trustee Eastman. Trustee Hollander.
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Trustee Smith.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The treasurer is with us this evening. The Finance Director, or I'm sorry, the Director of Community Services report. Oh, no, I do that every time, don't I? I am so sorry. Director Vasquez, please. Our
Yes.
Director of Finance.
Thank you. Just have a few items for tonight, Mayor. I've continued my work reviewing the audit draft we received just prior to our last meeting. While I intend to have it presented at our next board meeting, I'm still working through some questions I have with our auditors before finalizing the report. The month of May was open enrollment period for employees that wish to participate in the health insurance program offered by the village. The state informed us late in May of some pricing updates to Appendix A of which we informed the employees during open enrollment so they could have final pricing to help make their open enrollment decisions. And as I mentioned at a prior meeting, I am continuing to explore other possible health insurance options and should have more information to share on that later this summer. Another item I wanted to update on is our current agreement with Comcast for our internet services ends at the end of this year. We currently use coax for our internet connection. I've been working with Chief Dano to meet with our reps from Comcast to explore an upgrade to a fiber connection with our new renewal period. Fiber provides a more reliable connection, and any outages receive top priority for restoring service quickly. The chief and I have been working to secure the best pricing we can for fiber internet service and have already got Comcast to agree to waive construction costs and installation fees for both the Village Hall and police station. We should have an agreement ready to bring to the board at our next meeting. On May 30th, Mayor Ford and I participated in a roundtable for local villages hosted by our Congressman Brad Schneider. Roundtables such as this are helpful to hear challenges other villages are facing and express our concerns directly to him as well. We have plans for a follow-up meeting to further discuss ways Representative Schneider and his staff can help Riverwoods. The mayor and I also have plans to meet with our new state representative, Tracy Katzmuhl, later in June. This will give us an opportunity to discuss Riverwoods with her and see if there's any support she might help provide for funding on upcoming projects. That's all I have. Thank you.
Are there any questions for our finance director? Trustee Eastman, please.
I just asked that in those meetings with Representative Schneider and Ms. Katzmuhl that you mention the long-term plans for Lake Cook Road, because I think both or one of them might at least be helpful with getting a handle around that. And I know that's something that, and having driven that today, from seeing a bunch of different states in my travels over the past 10 days, that's one that I think we need to, raise. And it's obviously a multi-village issue, right? But that's something where I think in those sorts of roundtables, it would be helpful to, put that on their radar, given that we're dealing with Cook County, right? And see if they can shepherd it through the system.
No, I think that's a great idea. We'll make sure to note to bring that up to them.
Anything else for our director? Thank you very much. My apologies again. Director of Community Services report. Director Witt, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Saunders Road, village engineer attended a punch list walkthrough this morning. Most of the items have been completed from the prior month's punch list. There's still some minor restoration work. The major piece being some tire tracks from somebody that drove off the pavement and tried to do a U-turn in the grass areas. The grass is growing in quite well at this point, so we expect that to take well over the next couple of months. There's a valve vault lid that needs to be adjusted, and other than that, the work is essentially complete. So we're looking at being able to close out that project relatively quickly. The status of administrative adjudication activities, though we didn't have a meeting or a hearing since the last board meeting, we are working with a contractor for the One Woodland Court East project to get the code violations abated. Part of that work, the exterior concrete walks will be installed within the next day or two. The site's going to get cleaned up and grass seed mats will be laid down to help improve the look of that property for the neighbors. Once the violations are abated, the contractor will be allowed to continue work on the inside of the building so that the house can eventually get placed on the market for sale. Not on the agenda, but I'll get back to stormwater. Well, Stormwater Management Committee report, I have no update on that. Excuse me, one other item that's not on the list, but I think it's well worth mentioning, even though I believe this is already on our newsletter. Just a reminder that the Lake County Department of Transportation is holding a virtual public forum for Lake County's upcoming resurfacing, restoration, and rehabilitation, the 3 Rs project that will improve Riverwood Road from Deerfield all the way to Half Day Road and Duffy Lane from Riverwoods Road to the west of the I-94 bridge. As part of that project, they will be restoring the roadway surfaces, widening the shoulders, improving roadway drainage, and enhancing non-motorized travel facilities, including a new path along Duffy Lane. This is the first part of their public involvement activities for the project. And I believe on the web page, I believe there is the link for residents to contact them to get more information and provide input on the project. They are seeking input, and people will be able to participate between June 12th and July 12th this summer. So please visit the website, add your comments, and be heard. And that's all I have.
Are there any, Trustee Hollander, please?
Do you know if they've addressed the bike or walking path issue at this point yet?
That's going to be as part of this project. That is part of what they're calling their non-motorized travel facilities. So they are going to have that as the new pathway along Duffy Lane.
But we don't know if it's going to be on east or west yet.
No, not
Okay.
at this point.
Thank you.
Are there any comments? Trustee Jamerson
And
and then
what-
Trustee Dickin, please.
Thank you. And Riverwoods Road too, are they going to rework the path along Riverwoods? Because that's the path that's really in,
So Riverwoods Road is going to be reconstructed according to their mailing from Deerfield Road to Half Day Road.
right. But they're not going to do anything to the non-motorized path along Riverwoods Road? Because that path's about this wide and,
No, I believe
Really
the
bad
roadway,
shape.
I believe they're extending a shoulder on that section as well. I will clarify for the next meeting
okay, that'd
the
be great.
intent on it.
Thanks.
Trustee Dickin, please.
Yeah, so Duffy Lane is my neck of the woods, and I learned about this project from a neighbor who saw workers on their property. Did Lake County communicate with us before mid last week? Could we have given earlier notice to the residents?
Give me that again, I'm sorry.
I said that I learned about the Duffy Lane project from a neighbor.
Mhm.
This is where I live. Duffy
Right.
Lane is my neck of the woods. And I'm curious as to whether Lake County communicated with the village before last Wednesday, before they began the work. Because the way I learned about this project is from a neighbor who had a worker in his backyard. I think it'd be great if we could give residents more notice than after workers showing up on their property.
We have been made aware of the fact that the project is moving forward, but we were not aware of what the timeframes were for any of the survey work that was occurring. Yes, we received several phone calls from people that were concerned that their engineer was out there.
Yeah.
But I did explain to them that they're encroaching, they are on residential properties in doing their survey work, but they have to go a certain distance back in order to make sure that the contouring of the ground from the roadway toward the homes is of a certain slope. So yes, we were aware that the project was forthcoming, but not necessarily the time
Not of the
frame for
timing.
the people
Okay.
to be out in the field.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments for our director at this point? Okay, seeing none, moving on, consultants report, attorneys report, please.
We have received a purchase contract from Federal Life Insurance Company. We've offered some comments. We'll be talking about this later in closed session, but we are working towards getting to a final purchase agreement with Federal Life. We've also prepared a preliminary intergovernmental agreement between Riverwoods and the Lincolnshire Riverwoods Fire Protection District. You'll be talking about it with everyone in closed session again later tonight. The Fire District Board is just now getting it as well. So we're trying to fast track this, which means that we're looking at comments and we're looking at drafts before each side has fully vetted everything, but I think we're working in a cooperative spirit. And the idea is to have both of these documents ready to be executed at the next meeting of this board and the next meeting of the Fire District Board, which is June 18 and June 19. That's all for now.
Are there any other questions for our village attorney at this point? Okay, moving on. Our engineer is not with us tonight. Our ecologist is not with us tonight. Plan Commission report, please.
The only thing I have to report is that we will meet on June the 6th. That's it.
Any specific topic?
Well, we have a couple of consolidations of properties, and we may talk about the PUD. Bruce, I think you
Yes,
can
we
tell
have-
me.
We have a very preliminary draft of a new PUD ordinance, which was, the first draft of it was really prepared by Tesca Associates, and then Steve Wood and I marked it up. And so what the Plan Commission has is really kind of the first, staff version of it to start talking about.
Are there any questions?
Is this
Trustee Hollander,
PUD going
please.
to address a specific property or properties over a certain size?
Right now, the draft suggests it's properties of 9 acres and more.
So it'll cover any property over 9 acres?
Correct.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions right now? Thank you, Chair Brighthoff.
You're welcome.
Zoning Board of Appeals. Chair Greditor, please.
Well, and basically, I have nothing to report as well, except that the ZBA will be meeting a week from Thursday with a couple of issues.
Are there any questions for our chair? Okay, thank you very much. Police report, Chief?
The police activity is in your packets, and I do want to report some activity that we had with our flock camera system. It's just a couple of successful uses. We had a report of a speeder on Oakhurst who was making a practice of this daily. We had a description on the car, but no license plate. So we were able to use the flock camera to find the car with the license plate going by one of our cameras. And if on Oakhurst, it's a private street. So if he was speeding, we couldn't have stopped him anyway because we do not have an agreement with Oakhurst. But we did make contact with him. He lived in Deerfield. It was a teenager, and told him that we were aware that he's been speeding and he needed to stop. And we haven't had any complaints since. So that worked out well. Also, last week, or on May 21st, actually, one of the reasons I asked the board to consider getting flock cameras was a lot of the criminal activity that we do have in town occurs by suspects driving stolen cars. That's pretty common these days. They steal a car, they come into our town or in towns near us, and they steal more cars. They burglarize motor vehicles. They commit burglaries. So we did have on the 21st on the overnight shift, we did have a stolen car go by our camera. The officers drove around and looked for the car, found the car, tried to stop the car. The car sped off. We don't pursue for nonviolent crimes, but he was last seen getting on 294 and wasn't committing any crime in Riverwood, so we consider that a success. So that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Hey, are there any questions for our chief? Okay, moving on. Fire District Report. Chief Kruger.
We're also meeting options for the new fire station. So that's fire protection recently. Last time there's more up to him and see. Yesterday, we met with that group yesterday and discussed about some energy projects that cognizant of being environmentally and they specifically all different options, and apparently there's funding for those options, so we're going to,
Right. Any questions for our chief? Excuse me, I'm sorry. Trustee Clayton, please.
Really more of a comment than a question. I think the fire district has made an enormous and very surprising somewhat commitment to sustainability in the new design of the fire station. We came to the meeting prepared with quite a number of suggestions, and it turned out that every single one of the suggestions that we made with regard to sustainability was either already in the plans or was being considered in the plans. And I just came away very encouraged in that context.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for our chief? Thank you, chief. Thank you. Next up is information items and comments from the president. The only thing I would like to bring to everyone's attention is the summer months are coming and we have a lot on our plate, but I would like to know if there are plans, if you have any plans at this point to miss any of the dates in July or August, even on through September. If you could please let me know. The first one that is coming up is we have our meeting is scheduled for July 2nd. The 4th of July is the 4th is on Thursday. Is on Thursday. And our Plan Commission, I'm sure, will be meeting on July 4th as well because it is the first Thursday of the month. So we've got some work to do, but please, if you could let me know, email me and let me know what dates during the summer you think you might be missing so we can make sure we have a quorum, and if not, we can adjust our schedule so that we can attend to business, because I'm sure things will start moving along a little bit more quickly, and we'll want to make sure we can respond to that. Okay, moving on to our first item of new business. First item of new business is discussion and approval of a sustainability task force naming co-chairs. I think that this issue came up because this is not a committee of the board at this point, and it is a citizens or a residents committee. But we've had some questions about the possibility of open meetings issues because the number of trustees wanting to attend as residents, but they are still sitting trustees. So we wanted to bring that to the board's attention and see if there might be if the board might want to take this on as a board committee rather than waiting for the residents committee to come forward with a plan as we had originally planned, or if somehow we figure out how not to have trustees attend all at the same time. I'm not sure how that would work. So I'm opening it up for the floor.
I just want to say the issue was brought to my attention that we had, a number of trustees at some of these meetings. I don't know how often that occurs. I wasn't expecting. I can understand why now in hindsight. And the Open Meetings Act treats a meeting as a majority of a quorum, which would be 3 trustees. And there's a lot of guidance developing around different states where meetings are held with these, 2 at a time, and then another one, 10 minutes later, and these kind of serial meetings where they said, no, that's really tantamount to a meeting. The same issue occurs with the group emails and group discussions. So there's liabilities for officials who violate the Open Meetings Act. I think it would be, improper not to bring this to our attention and say we really should be observing the Open Meetings Act. There's enough substance of village business being conducted potentially that it's worrisome if we have too many trustees. So if the desire of the board is for this to stay a citizens committee, then my suggestion is that the number of trustees who come limit themselves. I don't know how you would do that, but really need to limit the number. The alternative is simply designated as a village committee. It's meeting here at the village hall anyway, which of course gives the imprimatur of a village committee and subject to the Open Meetings Act just by the fact that it's meeting here and trustees occasionally come into the meetings. The only other requirements once it becomes a committee is that we, keep minutes and that someone, post a notice on the door like we post for all other meetings 48 hours in advance. So It doesn't have to be particularly burdensome. Many villages around us have organized these committees as task forces, as village, designated task forces. I'm not saying it has to be one way or another, and I understand different reasons why, as a citizens committee, the citizens might want to come forward with ideas before coming to the board, but I just think that the participation of elected officials in formulating the policy should be carefully thought about.
Discussion. Trustee Smith?
Sure. So being a member of the Sustainability and Climate Action Plan Task Force, we did have a brief discussion. I think we are open to it being a village committee or a Board of Trustees committee. So I think we're open to that. However, if that creates challenges for the village, then I think one of the trustees could merely just drop off, or we can make sure we coordinate. There's currently three that attend, I'm going to say sporadically. I mean, just meaning that not all three attend all the meetings. So we could probably do it either way. I'm open to either. I don't see any harm though in it being a Board of Trustees committee.
If, again, that comes with posting 48 hours in advance, that must be done. Minutes need to be kept, and the records would then be part of, we'd have to work with the clerk in order to keep the records here with the village records. So, and I mean, those kinds of formalized type things would have to occur, and you'd have to be willing to do it. Trustee Eastman, please, and then Trustee Hollander.
Sure. I mean, I would just add that I think, I would certainly be open to the idea if we wanted to keep it, private to rotating the trustees. I think that might work, and that's kind of allows people to share the burden, right? In the initial meetings, we had 3, and then I think we've had 2 at some of the recent meetings. My only concern with making it a formal village commission might be the staff time or the expectation that the staff would contribute in some way to the work product, which I think now that we've fleshed it out, there were some discussions about who would produce the actual plan, whether an intern or someone might be hired. My only concern would be the understanding of, what, if any, resources would the village have to put into it when it's still at the committee stage and the plan hasn't been formed. And then, obviously we don't have that many staff, and I wouldn't want to put that burden on them.
So there is no legal requirement for staffing. I mean, there's the requirement for a body meeting as a village body is to be open to the public, to meet pursuant to posted notice, and to keep brief minutes of what transpired at the meeting. Those are the requirements, not that staff be dedicated to the committee, that the staff participate in what the committee does. And the various villages, though, there's sometimes a liaison, or they have an assistant somebody that we don't have who comes to the meetings and maybe distributes materials, but none of that is required by law.
Okay. I think I would just say that whatever direction we go, we make it clear as to whether staff members are expected to participate in the formulation of the plan, or if so, how, right? Or if they're completely out of it until we actually go into a, vote on it and have an implementation phase. I think that just may be cleaner.
Yeah, well, I think if the board wants to designate the task force, it can stipulate that it wants the product to initially arise from the residents who are the members of the committee, and not, I think that can be, a part of the formative, charge.
I think that would have to be, speaking for staff, that would have to be very clear up front, because if we were to involve either of our directors or our clerk in any of this at this point in time, I think we would suffer in terms of enforcement, in terms of moving forward with certain financial budgeting and insurance and so forth, those activities. So it would have to be very clear that we would not be preparing minutes, we would not be doing postings. The committee would need to produce the product, monitor itself and maintain those records itself. Trustee Hollander, yes.
2 things. One, it was my impression that the mayor had the ability to form these committees. You don't need permission from the board. Second, this started as a grassroots effort, a citizens effort. few times where I've seen mixed meetings like this. The board members tend to have undue influence from some other person who's in our village who has thoughts on this. They tend to a greater influence, let's say. I would be against trying to take any part of the board at this point in time, taking any control or have any significant input before the citizens have presented their views. We'll have plenty of time to review it, get involved, bring the citizens in later after they've gone through this. I think that it should be kept just the way it was presented to us by those interested parties. And I understand that may cause a board member who is interested in this not to participate, but that's a single individual or two. Anyway, that's my opinion.
Trustee Clayton?
I think we're making this overly complicated. The committee keeps minutes. The committee doesn't require any staff support at this particular point in time. I think all three of the trustees bring different skill sets to the committee, and it would be a shame to lose one of them. People have been very actively involved at this particular point. I think we are raising concerns that really don't exist and won't exist in the short term. And so it would be, I would like to move that we make this an official board committee. I guess that's it. I would like to move that we make it an official board committee.
With no expected support from the village.
Fine.
If it is a board committee, then I'm going to need some help in terms of how does that appointment happen to the members of the committee and so on.
I think you can elect the chairs, admit people. They're just citizens already part of the committee. So I don't think you need to reformulate the committee. We have people who are willing to serve as chairs already. So I think it just, if Trustee Clayton is saying, let's just form a committee under these circumstances, and Trustee Smith is saying, provided that there's no expectation of continuous staff support other than, making available the village hall for the meetings and stuff. I think that there's not much more.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, now I guess what I'm going to say is appointing the co-chairs. We had two individuals who stepped forward before. That would be Lori Breitkoff and Julie Vivaro. And so I'm going to suggest, if they will accept that appointment, that they be appointed the co-chairs of this committee.
And you're looking for a motion to concur
I'm
in your
looking for a
appointments.
motion to appoint those individuals as co-chairs.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to make a comment? You were.
No, I was
Oh,
going to say
just turning,
aye.
Okay, all opposed? Okay, thank you, and you have your,
Are we going to call it the Sustainability
Ability
Task
and
Force?
Climate
Is
Action.
that the name of it? The Sustainability Task Force? Okay.
okay, and we'll look for periodic reports then.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next order of business is the approval of an electrical aggregation agreement. Director Witt, would you please lead us through this?
Sure, thank you. So there's a memo in your packets which provides some background to the municipal aggregation program. Our current term in the aggregation program expires this August. Mike Mudge of Rock River Energy Services has coordinated receipt of bids for the village as he has done in the past. Bids that were taken, I think, last Thursday are included in your packet. However, those numbers change fast, so there is a chart of the revised bids, which are effective as of, I believe, yesterday or this morning. Those were passed out this evening for your comparison. We would note that the numbers from Dynergy, who is our current provider, those numbers actually went slightly down. And the other provider, which is Nordic Energy, those numbers went slightly higher. So Mike is here tonight to answer any questions you may have. And I'm really going to turn this over for discussion to him, particularly to help us understand how the bids that came in compared to the current ComEd rate. So Mike, if I could turn it over to you, if you want to sit over there and just hit to get the green light on the mic, please.
First of all, it's good to be back. We were here in 2012 when we did the first contract.
Okay. There we go. Microphone on? Good. Thank you. You get it a little closer to the, if you can. Yeah.
It's not on.
Oh,
There
now,
we
is
go.
that better?
There you go.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Technology is great when it works, if you know how to use it. First of all, this is a beautiful facility. I'm kind of partial to the old Village Hall, but I realized that it outlived its function and purpose with its issues. But what a nice place. Thank you. Thank you for putting me on the agenda and allowing the time. Now, notice the bids are higher than the present ComEd rate. I did send a sheet up that had the past 30 months and the savings between the ComEd rate and the rate we had on our last contract. I'll just briefly mention that just a little bit. There's 937 accounts that's on the village aggregation plan right now. There's 12 accounts that are selected the 100% green option for sustainability. I heard that word quite a bit. And that's the most of any community that we have percentage-wise. It's still very low, but people have the option. The average savings per month per customer is like $10.41. Total over the last 30 months has been $292,625. So that's money that stayed in the village for other things, for the individual residents. So the only other thing I wanted to point out on that sheet that was the ComEd rate in May, June, July, and August last year. It was like 10 cents a kilowatt hour. This May, it was 7.936 cents a kilowatt hour. In the summer of 22, it was 11.5 cents a kilowatt hour. One of the differences that they made this spring, or early spring, was the PEA, Purchase Energy Adjustment. ComEd simply can't make any money on the power, but it can't lose any money on power, so they adjust it. It used to have a cap on it, plus or minus a half a cent. This May, it was 1 cent a kilowatt hour. Now, what's the trend? Trend for power is going up. The accelerated retirement of fossil fuel plants is one thing that's causing it. 2, wind and solar is coming online, but it's only available 35% of the time historically, and it's not keeping up with the demand, the new demand for power, which is caused by EV vehicles and the huge data centers. Those are now ComEd's largest customers. A data center will use 1 billion kilowatt hours. So our excess capacity that we had that gave us very low rates is shrinking fast, not only in Illinois, but all across the country. So that's just a background. I want to be conscious of your time because I know you got a big agenda. So a question would be, why would we go forward with a contract that's higher than the present advertised ComEd rate of 6.9? It's about 6.8 cents if you look at the current month's rate for the summer, the ComEd rate. Well, real quick, if you look at and decide to lock in a rate from these bids we gave you, that goes for 12 or 24 months. I'm not a fan of the 36 month, but I feel from the power going up in the next 5 years, every year is stair-stepping up. In years before, it would always be cheaper the longer we went. So I think we may lose money for a few months, but over a 2-year period, I think we would gain that back, and that's one thing. The PEA, as I mentioned, is variable, and the third thing is, well, we're still giving people customer choice, and they can opt out anytime, either right away when we send the letters out, supplier sends the letters out, they can opt out, or two, anytime during the term of the contract, they can opt out. And that's very important. That's their choice. Our other option tonight is to send everybody back to ComEd in August. And that's definitely something the board can look at and consider. Let's see. Oh, the green option. This is on the sheet. If you look at the third column, 100% renewable option. This is available to everyone. They have to opt into that. You have to call in and say, I want this option. And like say some people do. This is one of the lowest green prices that's around. You go on the website to plug in Illinois, find a green, but you'll find they're 12, 14, 16, 18 cents a kilowatt hour. There's other things that I don't want to take time, but community solar is an option for individual, or we could come back and do a whole community could do a solar option that the board would approve. And there's a lot of different variables out there. So it's whatever. I just want to throw that out there. So if you have a sustainability committee, they want to talk about that, they can get a hold of me also. And I can let them know what's available to bring back to you, things like that. So, any questions?
Quick question, just procedurally. The last couple of times we've done this, hello, Mike, is if the board approves this, we have to execute the contract tomorrow. Is that right? Something like that.
Yes.
We have a short period of time in which to.
Right, because rates change. You can see what they did from last Thursday. We like to get that out in the bid packet, but these rates came out today.
Okay, so I just want the board to understand that the approval tonight means we're basically authorizing signing the contract, and usually I review it and make changes they don't accept, and then we sign it. Something like that. Okay.
Maybe we can short circuit the process.
Well, we're kind of used to each other at this point.
I do have one from Dynegy with me, and I have the one electronically with me from Nordic, but we can get them to you, and that tomorrow's fine if the board goes forward with that.
Trustee Smith?
Just a question. So obviously, we're very interested in solar and sustainable energy, green energy options. By doing that, if you were to come back with what those options may be at some point, does that change what the Board of Trustees is approving tonight, or whenever it's signed tomorrow, if that happens?
No, they changed on the CJ Act, which I call the nuclear plant bailout bill. They changed some of the things. You can have net metering, which means you have your own solar, and be on a supplier. You can be on a supplier and have community solar, which is strictly a discount on the ComEd rate, no matter what that is. It's a flat discount on that. So they've blended it so there's a lot of powerful programs out there, and now they all are working with each other, getting all the governmental regulations to work with each other. But that's a very good question. I hate to use that term, but it's good. But it brought out the fact that, yeah, we're not tied into anything, and customers still have their choice.
Yeah.
Trustee Hollander, please.
If I'm reading this correctly, and from what you said, although the first year we may, or for part of the year, pay more than we would with ComEd, that your major concern is the outgoing years, years 2, years 3, where you expect the rate to go up significantly. And what I'm at least seeing in the choices given to us, that Dynergy gives us a better rate in year 1, but the other company, Nordic, gives us better rates in the future. It seems to me that if it's the future rates which we're concerned about, that it would be more beneficial for us to go with a company that guarantees lower rates in the future than the other choice. Am I thinking of that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Trustee Jamerson, please.
Just a clarification, though. I believe that if we went with the 2-year rate, it's 2 years at that rate. It's not the first year is the low rate, and then the next year is the increased rate. Is that not correct?
Right.
The rate is the rate. So if you pick the 2-year rate for 24 months, everybody's going to pay either $8.53 or $8.48.
I did not understand it correctly. Thank you.
So can I make a couple of comments?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you.
So as Mike said, this is the 5th time we've done this, and Trustee Chamberlain and I were the ones that were pushed this in the beginning, more so Trustee Chamberlain than I. In the beginning years, we saved the village millions, literally millions of dollars the first contract. It's not that way anymore. And as Mike said, the purchase energy adjustment changed a lot of things. I'm concerned, and I did talk to Mike today briefly, there's a couple things. In the past, we've had 6, 7, 8 bids. If you remember some of the trustees that were here before, we had a lot of bids. This year we have 2. Talking to Mike, one of the reasons was because ComEd withheld, whether they did it on purpose or not, we don't know, withheld the information on how much our residents were actually using in electricity, in energy. So the companies can't bid on something they don't know about. Correct, Mike?
That's correct.
So that greatly reduced the number of suppliers that bid on this at this point in time. So that's one factor we need to keep in mind. There could be other suppliers that if they had another month, that maybe the numbers would be lower. Maybe they wouldn't. But our contract ends in August, and there's a lot of things that have to happen between now and then. If we stay with the program, if we don't stay with the program, there's opt-in letters that go out, there's opt-out letters that go out to certain people, and those are done by the suppliers. ComEd sends a letter out to people. And there's a flurry of activity that has to happen between now and August when our contract is up. So, so that's one of the reasons why it's critical that this, we make some kind of a decision tonight. My feeling is that, and the one thing that we could do is we could not move forward with the aggregation program. Okay, well, I guess my time's up. Not move forward with the aggregation program, but then solicit more bids later and just have a new date. Now, what that does is it's going to cause confusion with our residents because they will get a letter that says they're getting put back on the ComEd program. And then we're going to come back and say, but we now have a new aggregation. So here's, you have the choice to opt back in. So that's confusing to our residents. So I'm not sure what I would say the right thing to do is. I just don't know. And I guess at this point in time, I'm almost tempted to, my personal opinion is, I think I'd be tempted to say, let's not do anything. Let's not do an aggregation program this time around, as much as that hurts me to say that. I think we would have a hard sell to tell our residents that even with just a 1-year program, it's almost a whole, it's 1 cent a kilowatt hour, which doesn't sound like a lot. But when you're trying to tell people that we're doing something for their benefit and it's going to cost them more money, I'm not sure they're going to agree with us. So, and it's a confusing thing with this purchase energy adjustment, because if you do look at it, I mean, we did, over the length of the contract, our residents did save money. There's no question about that. But in some months, we didn't save, and some months we saved a lot. So
The difference this time is that we don't know that we're going to save money.
we don't.
Well, all we know is we might, if prices go the way we think they might go.
In the past, we knew what that purchased energy was capped at, and we knew where Edison's rates were. They got changed twice a year, and we kind of knew that this is what the future held, and now we don't have any idea what the future is going to hold.
Trustee Clayton, did you?
I would guess I got a little confused by some of the numbers that got thrown around, just a historical kind of baseline here and trying to look forward. There was a 10-cent number and then it dropped to 7.9 cents and then it was for ComEd and then it was 6 something and then you said something about 11 cents. If you could just kind of help me through what our expectations are with regard to the future ComEd rate as compared to what it is right now.
What we're seeing is we bid power out for commercial industrial customers. As I mentioned before, we used to see some backwardization in the market. 1 year, 2 years was cheaper than 1, 3 years was cheaper than this first and the second year. But now we're seeing, like we're going 5 years out, and each year is a step up. And that's why I kind of talked about power and it's a supply and demand function. We're growing, our demands for power is growing faster than our supplies are shrinking. Now, natural gas was a catalyst and we had lower prices this spring because we come out of winter with a lot of natural gas. Why is that important? That's the number one fuel used to produce power, round-the-clock power. The largest, it's like over 50% in the country. So the electrical market followed natural gas very close. When you see these high numbers of like 11.549 cents, that's when natural gas was getting up to over $1, $1.20 a therm. So it was shutting off and more expensive power was used. So again, ComEd is paying kind of what's out there on the market, and that purchase energy just fluctuates because they can't make money on power, but they can't lose money on power either. So that's where the fluctuation comes in. So a short answer to your question is, and to kind of answer Jim's thought, if we we can come back and rebid this in 3 months, we can rebid it in 6 months. My own feeling is we kind of scraped the bottom now. Natural gas, the producers have cut back some, and the demand for it is strong. We kind of scraped the bottom and we're starting to go back up. And the one thing, ComEd was changing their billing system around, changing account numbers and that. It started in February. And it just gummed up the works as far as us getting data so our suppliers could bid. That's one reason we got, as Jim mentioned, a reduction on suppliers. But I think our opportunities, the prices we got before February for our communities were lower than what we have now. So I think we're on the upward trajectory. So being where we were like in January and February with our communities as compared to now, and looking at our commercial industrial customers every year, it's getting more expensive. That's because they know natural gas is really scraping a historic low coming out of this winter. We're starting to see that trend go up. If anybody knows how the election will go this fall, I can give you a better idea about whether we're going to be drilling more or not, you know? So
you're the expert. If you were given the choice at this point between staying with ComEd or doing one of these, which would you opt for?
My thoughts are lock in a rate that you're comfortable with. Let the customer decide what they want to do. Each month, the ComEd price compares on the bill, the energy adjustments there, and they can make their choice. If we go back to ComEd, we're taking an option away from the customers. And I mentioned to Jim earlier, if we locked in this rate if someone had a problem because this rate's higher than ComEd, just say, you can opt out, go back to ComEd. That is your choice. There's no termination fees. That's been part of the program since the beginning. Does that help?
With that in context, then I guess I would say that I would be in favor of opting for the 2-year Nordic Energy program.
So just one comment on what he said.
Absolutely.
If you opt back out and you go back to ComEd after you've gone into the municipal aggregation, you got to wait 6 months to come back to the aggregation program. So you can't constantly flip back and forth. They don't like that. The other thing, just a quick comment about the use of electricity in this area. ComEd has stated recently that they have a 40% overproduction of electricity. But the new data centers, because this is what I do for a living, the new data centers for AI take 10 times the amount of energy that a normal data center takes. So that 40% is going to get used up pretty quickly.
My understanding also is that electric cars use up a lot of energy as well, like 2 months worth of a household, something like that.
I mean, I suppose one way of looking at this is that the village board would be hedging for the village residents. We've set a cap.
Yeah.
You can opt out, but at least we've done what we could. Yeah.
Is there a motion?
I second his motion.
Did you make a motion? I did not. Oh, okay. And that was for the 2-year rate?
Yeah, the 2-year rate from Nordic Energy. It's lower and it doesn't commit us for the 3 years, which we've been advised against. And there's a smaller difference between the regular rate and the green rate. So I move that we accept Nordic Energy's 2-year bid.
And you're still seconding that motion?
It's still seconded.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Trustee Eastman, please.
I guess maybe I just add, I don't have a good sense as to what the letter sent to the residents, like how well that's written. My only thought might be that we put something in the Village Voice if that letter isn't clear, kind of making, a short digestible way of saying that this is what we did and this is why we think it's of a benefit. And, you have these 2 options
I
and
think we
just so
could
that
do
people
a
can get it.
newsletter, Joan.
We can reproduce the ones we've written in the Village Voice in the past each time.
Yeah, they've been pretty clear in the past.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
All right. As
Yeah,
long
we
as
can-
long as that's
We can
clear.
put that in the newsletter. And please tell everyone to sign up for the electric newsletter, please.
Yeah.
Electronic newsletter. Are there any other questions or comments? Trustee Smith?
The only other thing we've discussed at the Board of Trustee level a few times is there a way to discourage non-green energy by perhaps putting the green energy option first, still providing an option, but making it an opt-out versus an opt-in? I don't know if that's part of this discussion we're having today, but if that's something we could, maybe you have some thoughts on that. If there's some way we could encourage green energy usage, I think that'd be great.
The state program, when they laid down the rules for this, is to be an opt-out program. And some communities, when we initially started, wanted to have just 100% green. And that was the only rate that they had. A lot of those communities are now back on ComEd because the rate, got a lot higher. But what we did, and I'm from the way western suburb, John Coleman used to say super boonies, they wanted lowest price. But we also worked in where you could get that green option. And I think that's something that if we do the 2-year Nordic Energy, that green option is 8.68 cents. And that is a very good rate. So I think it's all on how the community would like to handle it. And working with Steve. Steve's been great. Sending him the information, and he's like a sponge. He's just absorbing all this stuff. But it made my job easier, put it that way. And he wrote a great overview of what we're going to talk about tonight. I thought I'd only be talking 2 minutes, but
Yeah, thank you. And what I was really saying is make the non-green the opt-out. So if you're in the aggregation program today through the Village of Riverwoods, you're still in it and you're being defaulted into the green option, then allowing people to deselect into the non-green.
I think.
Does that not make sense? A lot of questions.
It does make sense, and we talked about this actually at the very first time we had the option of doing the green energy. And the board at the time felt that because the green energy option was more expensive, and even though it doesn't look like it's that much, it's only 0.2 cents, that we would get less participation. And we still offer the green option. You can still get the green option. It's just you have to opt into it as opposed to opt out of it. So I mean, I think I'd rather see it that way than the other way, but.
Trustee Hollander.
Yeah, I'm concerned about promoting a program that's more expensive as an opt-out. I mean, it just does not seem something as a village that we should put that burden on residents who, that they have to take an extra step or they're going to be charged more. It just doesn't sit right, I think, at least with me.
For clarity, we are talking about the Dynergy.
No, Nordic.
Nordic. We're talking about the Nordic.
The Nordic 2-year.
It's 2%
Okay.
higher than the non-green,
Okay.
2.3.
may I make one more comment?
Yes, please.
Okay. If we have somebody on the traditional rate, and if we propose to do a community solar, be a community solar community, that's an option. And these customers can elect to go sign up and get a 10% off of whatever the ComEd rate is. And if the board's interested in that, we can pursue that. And so whatever ComEd rate is, if it's 10 cents, then it'll be a 9-cent rate. And that just goes on and on. But I can get Mr. Witt that information, or I can get it to your sustainability committee so they can look at it and kind of brief back to what.
And but that does not have to happen tonight. That can happen at any time.
Okay.
Right. That's a work in progress type of thing that.
Does this, with that solar thing you just described, excuse me, does the solar thing you just described, would that apply to Nordic as well? Or is that a ComEd only thing?
No. We can do the Nordic and do the community solar.
Oh.
When they changed some of the rules, they says you can have both. You can have your cake and eat it too. Is that? So,
Director Vasquez, please.
Just as maybe perhaps a bit of a compromise on presenting the option of the green power, since the costs, and I don't know what the costs were historically, but it seems like they're very close now. Perhaps when we put this out there in the newsletter, we can find a way to show how close that gap is, and perhaps show something along the lines of the average household uses X amount of power. If you opted into the green option, you would maybe on average be paying, I don't know, maybe $120 more per year. And maybe seeing it in that context, it might make people see, yes, I'd be paying more, but for $120 more, I'm open to that idea for green energy. Just a thought.
If I could ask a point of clarity, please. When in the experience with governmental aggregation, the column to the far right, Dynergy has 255 Illinois communities and Nordic has 7. Is there any benefit or is there any detriment to being part of a smaller group?
Nordic is a Chicago-based supplier, and they just kind of got back into the program again. They were in it years ago, and they had kind of dropped out and went into more of the commercial industrial phase. Now they're kind of getting back into that. And with suppliers, it's like, where are our resources best used? Now they're kind of backing out of electrical aggregation. Everybody's squeezing down on their resources. So that's,
Would they have less ability to, less marketability? I mean, would they, are they representing a smaller market? Would that have anything to do with the pricing?
Are you worried about reliability? Just, is that what you're saying? Are they?
No, just experience, and if they represent a smaller number, would they have the same kind of purchasing power as 255 communities? Would they be less attractive?
it's interesting how this works, Mayor. That's a very good question. There, I used that again. Anyway.
Was it as good as his question?
Actually, it's my question.
Oh, you're, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. But anyway, all suppliers and the Illinois Power Agency that buys for ComEd and Ameren utilities, they all go back to the market or the generators. So Nordic does the same thing. So big or small, it really doesn't matter. And I think Nordic's won some bid from us. They all have to send out the opt-out and opt-in letters using on city letterhead, but using their costs and that. And they all pretty much state the same thing. Here's what's going on. Here's when this would start. Here's what to call if you want to opt out. They all have those letters that they required to do. So.
Okay, thank you. Are there any, Trustee Hollander?
One last question. Because of our trees, power being lost is not infrequent here. Does the servicing of equipment, is that affected by the supplier? Or is ComEd responsible regardless of place from whom we get our electricity?
ComEd is still responsible for keeping the lines intact. That's where they make their money now. They don't make money on power, as I stated. So ComEd's responsible for that. The suppliers strictly get the supply and furnish it to ComEd, and it's all on paper, but that gives us the options.
Thank you.
And ComEd also does the billing for all our suppliers.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments? All right, roll call, please.
Trustee Eastman?
Aye.
Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson?
Aye.
Trustee Smith? Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Trustee Dickon? Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Mudge. We appreciate you coming in and the work that you're doing for us. Thank you.
I always mentioned that this felt like my second home. And if I didn't live out in Oregon where I lived, I said, I'd like to be in this community. But there is a resident here that runs a restaurant out in Oregon. It's called Maxon's Manor, and they have a riverboat on a river and stuff. And they're doing a nice job. So.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Safe travels home.
You're going to give me, are you going to email this to me, or are you going to?
Oh, no, that's all right.
He always likes to look at the contracts.
I know. Okay, last item of new business, approval of the appointment of Shelley Brown to the Zoning Board of Appeals. I am delighted to present Shelley as a candidate for the last open position on the Zoning Board of Appeals. You have his resume in your packet, and if I might have a motion for approval of this appointment.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much. No old business. We'll move on. Oh, visitors wishing to address the board. Are there any visitors here
Excuse me, Mayor.
this evening? What did I miss? I have the wrong thing. I am so sorry.
You didn't want to forget about me.
Director Witt, would you like to please, yes, the cursed change order. Thank you.
Yes, I would, please. All right, so during construction on the Saunders Road project for the water main, during the excavations, it became quite evident that the location of existing water mains and high-pressure gas mains conflicted with the alignment of the proposed water main. In fact, we did find through some of the excavations that the water, some of these utilities were up to 20 feet off of what we had on record in our GIS. So it got quite difficult. So in order to avoid additional conflict above and beyond what we had, we needed to install an additional water valve and some fittings in order to reroute the location of the new water main. So work was authorized to avoid a delay in the construction, and obviously we're to a point where the project is only on punch list items. So we're looking to gain an approval of a change order in the amount of the work, which was $12,800. We're looking for approval tonight so that we can essentially close out this project.
Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion, questions, comments? I apologize, it was a last-minute thing on Friday, so. All right, seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson?
Aye.
Trustee Smith?
Aye.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Trustee Dickon?
Aye.
And Trustee Eastman?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, now, there is no old business. Visitors wishing to address the board.
Just a point of information, I have a 20-year contract with Clearway Solar Community, started in 2020 at 20% discount off of ComEd's rate for those 20 years. So, the process is, assuming ComEd's accounting is working, which has been a problem for the last few months, is that wattage charge, the kilowatt charge, less 20%. I pay part to ComEd and part to Clearway. So, but a 20% discount.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, David. Anyone else? I'm not calling on people this evening. Okay, moving on. Committee reports, please. We'll start with Finance, Economic Development. Trustee Clayton, please.
No report.
Communications, Trustee Dickon, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I have set up a dedicated page called Economic Development, which is on the village website. We've talked about this at the last Board of Trustees meeting. This page will house any communication that is publicly available to our residents regarding the Federal Life property and the fire station project. So once we receive documents that are open to the public, we'll be updating that page. And it would probably be a good idea to consolidate projects that we've looked at in the past, such as the Baxter property and Lexington Homes, just so that we kind of keep it all tidy, all in the same place. And also, I'm working on drafting a social media policy for the village. You may like social media, you may not like social media, but it's here, and it's here to stay. And social media has really become the modern day village square. This is where people come to organize. This is, and as we've seen with the Baxter property, it was a very powerful platform. And we don't really have a methodology to keep our hand on the pulse of what goes outside, whether there are any discussions, nor do we have any methodology of how we use social media to communicate with our residents. So I'm trying to consolidate things that I'm seeing being implemented in other municipalities, keeping in mind that we don't have a massive task force of qualified staff who experts in social media, with my main recommendation being that we purely use social media more as a bulletin board But again, we have to be consistent because this is really a two-edged sword, and it comes with a very high level of responsibility, and we have to make sure that whoever is responsible for using social media on behalf of the village is properly trained.
Are there any questions or comments for our trustee? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for taking that on. Next, Woodlands Ecology Legal. Trustee Eastman, please.
Nothing to report.
Next, Land Use and Roads. Trustee Hollander, please.
No report.
Building Utilities Stormwater. Trustee Jamerson.
I know it's hard to believe, but I don't have a report either.
Trustee Smith, do you have a report?
Let's just make it full house.
Just a big, okay. Thank you very much. Okay, now, next on our agenda is going into executive session for the purpose of discussing land acquisition. Do I have a?
Under section 2.
Under.
Under section 2C15 of the Open Meetings Act.
Okay, do I have a motion to go into close this session?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign?
So it was a roll call. Did you do
Oh, there's a roll call for this? Oh, sorry, roll call.
Jamerson.
Aye.
Trustee Clayton.
Aye.
Trustee Dickin.
Aye.
Trustee Eastman.
Aye.
And Trustee Hollander. Motion passes.
Okay, we stand adjourned. Trustees, we're going to be using the conference room.
What?
Oh, is that what? I saw the bandage. I didn't know that you
I need to replace. It'll be 2 weeks tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
So,
Oh gosh, before you know it, you'll be playing tennis.
that's good because I've never been able to play tennis before.
Mark my words.